A little over a year ago, a game called Grayzone Warfare started to emerge into the spotlight of the extraction shooter genre, and conveniently the game was dropped during the Unheard Edition drama that Tarkov was going through at the time. This sparked a pretty substantial launch for the game, and unfortunately for a lot of players, it did not live up to the hype at all. Bugs, lack of content, and overall terrible performance really had an impact on how players viewed the game. I myself really loved the concept of the game, but the bad performance made me step away for the foreseeable future. I knew the game had a lot of potential, but I wanted to give the devs some time to iron out a lot of the issues. And here we are 1 year later. So, what's changed and why did I decide to jump back in? Well, first of all, the reason why I myself and a lot of people are getting back into the game is the upcoming patch called Winds of War. I don't want to get into too much detail as I'm sure most of you know what it's all about, but to make a long story short, it's a very content-rich patch that really focuses on making the game better, giving players more things to do, and overall just a major step in the right direction. With the announcement of Winds of War, the devs decided to do an early preview playtest for select creators, and unfortunately, I didn't sign up in time to be a part of that. But that didn't stop me from jumping into the game just to see if things had gotten better since I last played a year ago. The first thing I wanted to see was if the performance was better. The answer to that is yes, by a long shot. You see, when the game launched, I was struggling to maintain a good 60 to 80 FPS on some of the lowest settings in the game. My FPS was terrible, the graphics were awful because I was on low settings, and I was experiencing some kind of issue with mouse acceleration from one of the game settings. I don't really know what was going on with that. A year later, and almost all of this has been fixed. The game feels way more optimized, and I'm able to maintain between 100 and 130 FPS in most areas. I do, however, still experience some FPS drops in certain locations, but it hasn't been too bad overall. One thing I will point out is when I booted up the game for the first time in over a year, I was having an issue where it was maxing out my CPU on the main menu. All I really had to do to fix that was turn down a couple of the settings and start to get the game more optimized for my system, and I haven't had that issue since. Another thing to keep in mind is that everything I'm talking about right now is in the current version of the game, which is patch 0.2. From my understanding, the performance is even better in the Winds of War update, which is known as patch 0.3. So if I think the performance is good now, apparently it is going to be even better once this update comes out and the rest of us can give it a try. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm still experiencing some FPS drops in certain areas of the game. Mostly it's only dropping down to about 80 FPS. Usually it doesn't go any lower than that. It is a bit annoying to deal with, but it is much better than when the game launched a year ago. A year ago, I could barely even get out of the fob and get into the starter town without having some kind of major issue where I'm dipping down into 20, 30, 40 FPS. It was terrible. The next thing I wanted to see was if the game had any more things to do. And unfortunately, in the current version, it really doesn't as far as I can tell. But that's totally okay in my book because the upcoming patch is absolutely loaded with content. See, one of the major issues I had with Grayzone Warfare a year ago was how they did the quest system. Essentially, you would spawn in at your team's fob, accept some quests, hop on a bird that would take you where you needed to go in order to finish that quest. That could be in the starter town or all the way across the map. It really depends on what you're doing. And once you finish that quest, you would have to go all the way back to the fob in order to turn it in. This ended up being extremely time consuming, and you spent a lot of time on the helicopter, literally just sitting there riding it for sometimes up to 5-6 minutes at a time. In the new update, however, the devs have introduced COPs into the game, which stands for Combat Outpost. With these outposts, you can now turn in specific quests while out in the world because they are littered all over the map. As far as I understand, you can only turn in kill quests at these COPs, and everything else you're gonna have to still go back to the main base, but it is a big improvement over having to go back to the main base all the time for every quest. Not only that, each faction is now fighting for control over these COPs, which means there are plenty of opportunities for PvP now. Every time two players in the world start to get into an engagement on the map, you will now get a red circle, and that will tell you exactly where to go for PvP. Now, in my opinion, I think this is a little bit too much. I don't know if the devs have spoken on this. I think if two players shoot at each other one time, I don't think the rest of the map should be alerted to that. but maybe they will make some adjustments and, work on it a little bit more. But overall, I am super excited for this change, and I can't wait to try out the new update for myself. The last thing I wanted to check out after returning to the game a year later is whether or not there were any new POIs, new AI, and things of that sort. As far as I could tell, there was none of that. The game essentially seemed to be exactly the same as it was a year ago, except for the improvements to performance and a day and night cycle. Now, a lot of players would probably be upset with the fact that in a year, there was basically no new content added to the game. But to me, this is actually a good thing. Back when the game launched, I remember saying that I hope the devs solely focus on making the game run and perform better rather than pumping out content on a regular basis. Because what's the point of having content if the game runs like garbage? Now, a year later, it seems like that is exactly what they have done and are finally ready to start implementing new things to do and new locations into the game and all the things of that sort. So, overall, my impressions of Grayzone Warfare a year after launch are actually very good. I think the game is headed in the right direction, and I think the devs are doing everything almost perfectly. Whatever they've got going on now, they have managed to bring a lot of players back and grab their interest once again. I just really hope that it doesn't end up being the same way that launch was. The Winds of War update looks absolutely amazing, and if you guys haven't seen anything about it yet, I highly encourage you to go have a look. As of right now, I'm unsure when all of us will be able to play the new update, but if I had to guess, I would assume it would be May 22nd, which is this Thursday. The streamer playtest ends on the 21st, and their Twitch drop campaign begins on the 22nd. So in my eyes, it seems like the update will drop on that same day. Nobody really knows though, but I hope I'm right because I'm dying to play it, and I know a lot of you are too. I personally have been waiting for something like this for a year now. I know a lot of you guys have also been waiting for something like this for a year yourselves. From the streams that I've watched of other creators playing the game during this playtest, I have been nothing but impressed. There seems like a lot of things to do now. There's so many more POIs on the map. I would assume that there's more quests to do, more things to do. The AI have been tweaked a lot. The performance is supposed to be better, and overall, it just looks insane. It looks like what it should have been at launch. I think the devs got a little bit ambitious with launching the game last year, and I think they did it because of the drama that was going on with Tarkov, and they wanted to capitalize on people not wanting to play Tarkov, so they decided to drop their game. Looking back on it now, I think they definitely should have waited, but that's just hindsight, and we all hate a hindsight warrior. Anyways, what do you guys think about Grayzone Warfare a year later? Do you think it's much improved or mostly the same? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.